Happy Friday. We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU sports play-by-play. I am Spencer Linton. That is Jarom Jordan. And joining us now to discuss the next big opportunity for BYU basketball is former sharpshooter, BYU basketball great Johnathan Tavernari back on the show. JT, how are you this Friday morning?
Hey, bonito.
Hey, Jared just made my day. He called me extremely handsome, which is what my mom and my wife call me. So, and we're off to a great start.
Looking good,
Appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, love to hear that. I wish I understood the language, but that's a conversation for another day. What I do understand.
You know a phrase?
Yeah, muito bem.
Yeah, there you go.
Muito bem. And BYU is muito bem, Jonathan.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, you just got yourself some brasa.
Let's
brasa
go.
grills.
That's the Brazilian Portuguese version of very nice.
Yes, very nice. BYU basketball playing at a very nice level right now with 3 straight wins for the first time ever in Big 12 conference play. Jonathan, how do you feel like BYU was able to turn the corner to do something that they have never done?
Consistency, right? I think, Jarom, that's something that we spoke at the pregame and at the postgame show. The way that they played that day was, incredible from the beginning to the end, right? Baylor had a few times that they got close, but then to be able to just weather the runs and the storms that Baylor brought, they then were able to respond and do it well, right? And so consistency, right? The difference between good and great, I always say to my boys, the team that I coach, is consistency on the little things, right? That's the difference between good and great. And BYU certainly showed that. And they did that against a very formidable foe, which Baylor, obviously, with their 2 freshmen, Wright and Edgecombe, my goodness, they were a handful to deal with.
What do you expect from Egor, Demin, and Kanon Catchings? Because Egor continues to have great assist numbers, but he scored 15 in 2 games back-to-back. Kanon Catchings coming off a career-high 23 points. Of course, that perfect performance. He made 3 threes the game before that against Cincinnati. So what do you expect from those 2 in this game tomorrow?
Well, so I would never forget being in the studio and your reaction, JJ, to your going, holy moly, first freshman in the century. With all of the things that Kanon did, right? I'm never going to forget that. I think I was in the middle of taking a bite of candy or something because of how nervous I was.
Well, there was a whole bowl, so it's hard to forget.
Well, anyway, but and so to me, what he did was incredible. And, before the show we talked, and I don't see a world where if they keep playing, and I don't want to say at that level because what Kanon did was once in a lifetime almost. But if they keep playing at a constant level and they are performing well, I think it's difficult for you not to look at them and say, fellas, we've enjoyed having you here. Good luck in the next phase of your life playing in the NBA. And that is because, Kanon delivered that where scouts were probably there to see him as a secondary option. Richie was probably, up there as well, but mainly to see Egor and Edgecombe and Wright. And the way that Kanon delivered was incredible. But also Egor, even through his lows, because we saw a high, in the last game, even on his lows, people rave about his passing ability, his, court vision. And so if BYU is to accomplish what they need to accomplish to make to the NCAA tournament, it's hard to envision that happening without Egor and Kanon doing it well. And also with them, kind of solidifying them as NBA draft picks coming June.
Johnathan Tavernari is on BYU Sports Nation. We turn the page to UCF tomorrow. They're a team that loves to get downhill with their guard play. They have a couple of guys that can go off on any given night. And frankly, they've given BYU trouble at times, although the Cougars have found a way. This game has been circled for them, Jonathan. So when you consider what's on the table for BYU in Orlando, BYU hasn't played well on the road this season. What are you expecting tomorrow against this version of the Golden Knights?
Well, and I just pulled up here the website. I want to make sure I got the names right as I was prepping for this. I mean, what an interesting team they are. Beat Texas A&M at the beginning of the season, and then, have so what of a performance against Wisconsin. And then they go and beat Texas Tech at Texas Tech, which we all know it's not an easy place to play. Turn around, get completely smacked by Kansas, right? And then turn around and have a very tough game against Arizona, have a very tough game against Houston, get smacked by Iowa State, to then turn around and beat TCU and have a very close game against Kansas. And so it's almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of situation. Which team is BYU going to face? And, hope for the best, plan for the worst. They should be really difficult to beat at home. And BYU needs to bring their A game. And obviously, playing on the road in the Big 12 is different than any other conference. Maybe from aside the ACC when you're Duke and North Carolina going to each other's places. But BYU has their handfuls. And I will say this, Spencer, just a little bit of maybe a continuation of this answer, but off topic. I remember last year you talking about how many wins they need in January, how many wins they need in February. And then talking with JJ on Tuesday, my goodness gracious, BYU is not far off from where they were last year to this year. They're actually better. Through 20 games, they have one less win that they did last year. But in conference, they have one more win. They were 3-4 last year. BYU is 5-4 this year. And I would ask you guys, comparing to how BYU and the season that they had last year, my perspective, I'd love to know from you, it always felt like this season it never got going and it never was magical compared to, the Winter Wonderland and Disneyland ride that we all felt that BYU was in last year. And so, having the games that they have left, I certainly have a number in mind that they need to win to be a lock in the NCAA tournament. But most important game of the season is the next one, and BYU have the handful against UCF.
Yeah, to feel like a lock, you would probably need to win 11 games in league and then win at least a game in Kansas City. But I think at 10-10, we're going to feel pretty good. 9-11, we're a little nervous, but we feel like we're in the mix. I don't know if in the mix would be good enough for this group, given how talented they are. You do have a nice core of vets. You do have some NBA talented freshmen. It's first year of Kevin Young. How high are we going to hold the standard? Is BYU too competitive in NIL to not expect to make the NCAA tournament, right? These are all questions that I think are pretty interesting. Spence, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I said it yesterday. I feel like BYU, if they win 10 games in the regular season and then go and get the 11th in Kansas City, some combination to get BYU to 11 wins should make them feel like an absolute lock. I'd say like 85% chance they're in if they get to 10 regular season wins.
And JT, it probably depends on what wins those are. Like if it's Arizona State and Kansas State and at Cincinnati, that you need Baylor can't be the best win of the season. I think you need an Arizona or Kansas to pad the resume. How many quad ones will BYU get? They only have one right now. They can get another one tomorrow at UCF.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, JJ, because that's one thing that I would say. BYU has 11 games left. At 6, I personally think that if you win 7 of those 11, you're guaranteed to most likely be, a higher seed, no lower than
it's either guaranteed or it's most likely. Which one is it?
I would say that if they win 7 games, they are guaranteed to be at least a 6 or better. So
in the NCAA tournament, yeah.
In the NCAA tournament. Yeah. So hold me to that. Now the counterpart to that is that's obviously aiming for the moon, right? I mean, we're trying to land in Mars now, so let's just say that's trying to land in Mars. But the second part of it is probably if they go 6-5 or maybe 5-6 to Spencer's point, then I'm going to agree with you, Jarom, that they probably, if they're only going to win 5 games left in the Big 12, then 2 of those wins better be against Kansas and better be against Arizona or Iowa State. They have to win 2 of those 3 for them to be able to say, we're good, we're comfortable. But then to your point, right, star power. That's a big thing on the NCAA tournament, NIL world and so on, is star power. As scouts and people are going to want to see Egor and Kanon and Richie and Kevin Young and so on. And so with 5 wins, 2 of them have to be against Kansas and Iowa State and Arizona for BYU to say, yeah, we're good. We're going to be dancing in March.
2 of those 3 sounds good, Spencer.
Let's go.
I'd take 1 of 3 right now.
Johnathan Tavernari is on BYU Sports Nation. The veterans have been an interesting conversation this season on this team, JT. Richie Saunders has gone to another level, clearly. I know that you and I agree that Dallin Hall is probably the most underappreciated veteran on this team. So I'm going to ask your opinion here. Why do you feel like that is his title as an underappreciated veteran on this team?
And I'm going to answer this, mentioning Dallin, but also mentioning a couple of other players. Not that they have to do with Dallin, but with the situation. Dallin, before Richie exploded, props to him. But before we all got started with this season, the best prospect that BYU had coming back was Dallin, based on how he finished last year. I don't think a lot of people would argue with me on that. Based on how Dallin finished the year, all of the hype in the offseason, Dallin was the primary target to come back, right? Now, Dallin came back. He was hurt. But then Egor showed up. And Egor, the same thing, the same effect that Egor, that the presence of Egor has had on Dallin, I'll probably say has happened with Elijah Crawford and Brody Kozlowski. Guys, any other normal year of BYU basketball, Elijah and Brody are the highest rated recruits on the team. They are the talk of the town. But just so happened that, and I'm going to say about this, Jerom's going to get a big smile on his face. Egor should be considered a bugger boy. He should be considered an All-American. He is the talk of being a top 5 lottery pick. You don't get that by just being some scrub that walks off the train or the bus or the plane from Moscow. He is coming from arguably the best basketball place in the world outside of the 30 NBA teams. And so from that perspective, when you have that massive of an impact, on your team, Dallin gets a little bit underappreciated because let's be realistic, guys. Most of the lineups that have been, finishing a game, Dallin is there. And he is there to provide, that experience, that security. No one is questioning how talented Egor is. Egor is once in a lifetime recruit. How many types of Egor, guys that come from Real Madrid, Barcelona, Panathinaikos, you name it, are going to come down to Provo, Utah to play basketball at BYU. And it's the reason why we've often have compared Egor's impact to Krasimir Chosic, who's one of my heroes. And so because that's not going to happen very often, this year is once in a lifetime year for BYU, which is the same thing for next year with AJ. Do I see this thing be sustainable? I don't know. I think it's going to depend on the NCAA success that BYU has, and also if Egor and Kanon are drafted. Because then the year after AJ, what's to stop BYU from getting 2 or 3 of the top 20 guys in the class? And so to me, when you add all of this, it's why Dallin Hall is underappreciated, because his defense is great. Obviously, he is not known as a scorer, but he has done that in his career. He delivered a big punch to Kansas last year to their only loss after they're winning at halftime, 80-1. And also, even Tuesday on the game against Baylor, he's had, over and over again, step back threes, which, everybody talks about his jump shot being suspect. I worked with him in the summer. His jump shot is not suspect. People's opinion about his jump shot is suspect because they haven't seen him do it. And so that's, to me, what makes Dallin very underappreciated.
JT, great to talk to you as always. We're ready for BYU at UCF in Orlando. Hey, as long as you got your suit and tie, you're good, right?
As long as I got my suit and tie.
Hey, I'm ready to go dancing if I have to loosen up a little bit and, and kick back and put my BYU hat on and be the annoying alumni. I'm ready to go. So call me in. Call me into the train, Spence.
Johnathan Tavernari on BYU Sports Nation. Great to talk to you, man. Have a great weekend.
Follow.
That mais. Ciao, ciao.
Hey, listen, we needed at least one Justin Timberlake reference, JT for another JT, right?
Well, sometimes I get jealous. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Great
Great song.